Afterward, the girl was locked in a cage by Dementes and forced to wander with his group, who engaged in rampant killing and looting. To join them, one had to survive a series of brutal fights, as only the most vicious could endure. One day, while wandering, a red signal appeared in the sky. The large group immediately headed towards it, and soon encountered a boy with an antenna on his head. He claimed his camp was well supplied, with mountains of juice and vegetables, clearly intending to lure them there. Given their numbers, Dementes' group was confident. Shortly, the motorcycle gang arrived at a canyon. They collectively revved their engines, creating a thunderous roar, clearly meant to intimidate the opposition. They then attempted to incite the enslaved refugees to overthrow their rulers. Seeing their success, they issued an ultimatum to those above. Unfortunately, he chose the wrong target. The owner here was no ordinary person. He was none other than the immortal old Joe, who drank 3 liters of human milk every day. Facing the provocations of the motorcycle gang and the Dementors below, old Joe never said a word. On the contrary, the fat man wearing a small elephant mask took the microphone. He asked his opponent to choose one of the fighters above, and the old man immediately pointed to one of them. The chosen bald man pulled out a chrome-plated jet and casually rubbed it on himself. As the crowd looked on in disbelief, he grabbed the javelins and took a leap of faith. The fat man said they had thousands of devout fighters, each willing to sacrifice himself for the immortal Joe. At this point, no words were needed, and the fight erupted suddenly in the next second. Due to their position, the Dementors couldn't reach their opponents and didn't know how to get up there. They were instantly turned into torches by the enemies above them, and were sent running in all directions. With no chance to fight back, in the end, they could only choose to run away. However, they weren't people who suffered easily, and soon turned their attention to the well factory. The owner of this place was close to old Joe and had been providing him with few resources. After ambushing them for a long time, they finally waited for their target to leave for delivery. Since this area had been under old Joe's control, the target didn't even expect someone to hijack the vehicle. It didn't take long for the Dementors to successfully hijack the vehicle. While they had acquired enough fuel to last a couple months, it wasn't enough for them. That's when they came up with a plan. They had the horned men pick out a few bald subordinates, and then mix the white sludge they dug up with gasoline and smeared it on the men's bikes. Their purpose was obvious: to disguise them as old Joe's men and see if they could infiltrate the oil plant and take it over. It wasn't long before the scouts on sentry duty noticed the situation and immediately called their boss, reporting that their vehicle was being pursued and requesting if the gates would be open to assist them. However, the cautious, spirited man sensed that something was wrong and didn't order the gate to be opened immediately. Seeing that the gate showed no signs of opening, the Dementors realized that their performance wasn't convincing enough and immediately ordered their men to make the act more realistic. When people started dying, the bearded man quickly ordered the gate to be opened, and the truck smoothly entered the oil factory. The rest of the attackers were driven back by the flamethrowers at the gate. Unfortunately for them, a few motorcyclists suddenly emerged from under the truck and quickly ran towards the gate controls. By the time the bearded man realized what was happening, it was too late. The main force of the Dementors was already at the gates, with the gate controls now in their hands. The bearded man knew he was finished, although the Dementors had seized the oil factory. This incident led to a conflict with the Horn Man. Not long after, old Joe received a package containing one of the bearded man's fingers. Feeling provoked, old Joe prepared to kill the opposing forces. Soon, the Dementors arrived with their men, fully prepared, and declared that if their team didn't return by nightfall, their remaining forces would destroy the oil factory. Hearing this, old Joe had no choice but to abandon the idea of killing them. After the last battle, the Dementors realized that Immortal Joe's strength was formidable, even greater than their own. Not wanting to engage in a mutually destructive fight, they proposed that as long as they were provided with the necessary food, they would continue to supply fuel. At this moment, old Joe noticed a figure in the crowd. The Dementes immediately declared that this was his daughter, Furiosa, who had caught the perverted old Joe's eye. In the end, they agreed that if the girl stayed behind, their deal would be settled and the supplies would be delivered as promised. Faced with such immense benefits, the decision was made swiftly. After the Dementors and their men left, Furiosa was locked in a compartment filled with old Joe's breeding tools. Thus, the story of the fierce goddess Furiosa officially began.